Hello, welcome to the morning news. Our top story takes us to Mexico. The violent state of Michoacan is in the headlines again. Now a military convoy opened fire on unarmed civilians during a protest. 2 children were killed and several people injured. Our correspondent, Glenn Cana, has the story.
These two men represent the indigenous coastal community of Santa Maria Stula, Michoacan. Over the past 5 years, the community has organized an armed police force to defend itself against the region's organized crime. Yet the authorities seek to now disarm the town.
As indigenous communities, we have uses and customs. We have our own laws and a communal police. And not just from 2009, nor from the uprising of civilian self-defense groups in the Tierra Caliente region, but rather, it is an organization that we have had as one of our customs.
Over the weekend, an army operation was implemented to detain communal police leaders, leaving several injured and at least 2 children killed, presumably by shots fired by military personnel. The community affirms that ultimately the authorities and organized crime alike seek to expropriate the natural resource-rich lands.
There is no trust in the government agencies. There is always distrust, because behind all of this, there are bad people inside the system, and the only thing that they have interested in is securing the economic part.
While the weekend attack has brought deep criticism of Mexico's armed forces in defense of human rights back into national and international discussion, Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto underscored his support for the military.
While some bet on moving aside our armed forces, we need to recognize as Mexicans our army, our navy, made up of women and men who work every day.
Human rights defenders argue that a mixture of impunity, lack of transparency, and a national security strategy of militarization in its so-called war on drugs will continue to put at risk the rights of the population.
This security model puts the civilian population in a context of high risk, of confronting abuses committed by military personnel, within this context of not being trained.
Rights defenders advocate a demilitarization strategy that puts policing back into civilian hands, providing support to community policing such as that of Santa Maria Stula, rather than criminalize them. Clayton Canta Sur, Mexico City.
Our Latin American news coverage continues in Chile. An unprecedented mea culpa was pronounced by the Congress in relation to a series of corruption cases involving lawmakers that have eroded public confidence. The institution made the first review of its 204 years and acknowledged the damage caused by corruption. But it's not only legislators who have been affected by scandals. President Michelle Bachelet's popularity has fallen to 24% amid a corruption scheme involving her oldest son, Sebastián Dávalos. Still in Chile, workers employed by service contractors at state-owned Codelco, the world's top copper miner, went on strike. They demand the right to negotiate collectively a benefits package similar to that offered to the company's direct employees. In a statement, Codelco said that 5 of its sites were partially affected by the work stoppage. Union workers blocked roads and set up barricades. They claim they are the ones who make the most sacrifices and are the least benefited. And back to Mexico, where federal and local officials in the southern states of Oaxaca took a mere hit at radical teachers opposed to President Peña Nieto's educational reform. Officials claim they want to do any away with the nepotism, incompetency of teachers, and corruption to pave the way for better education in favor of the population. The creation of a new education institution has been announced. The measure has already caused uproar among teachers who have threatened to increase protests and strikes.
We will recover and strengthen the state's educational body for the well-being of the people of Oaxaca.
And now to Peru with our correspondent Raul Mora, who tells us about a local mafia that is taking over construction labor unions. Various leaders have been murdered, and many more, opposed to the takeover have been threatened.
Buenaventura Vera is a construction labor union organizer for CGTP, the largest union conglomerate in the nation. Like many of his peers, he has received death threats from mafia, who are trying to displace the union to be able to illegally charge companies a percentage of profits for each construction.
The threat comes from the prisons. They call you on the phone, or the criminal calls you, calls your family, your house, or they come visit you at home and leave a dead dog or something, telling you not complain because otherwise you are going to die like the dog. That is the way in which they threaten the workers and the union leaders.
14 union organizers belonging to the CGTP have been murdered in the last 5 years. 2 of them in the last 10 days for preventing mafia members from charging fees at a large highway project in the North Coast. For CGTP leaders, it all started as a conscious attempt to weaken their union by creating competition for them through pseudo-labor organizations formed by pardoned convicts.
This started with the previous government with the objective to weaken this historical federation, which is the principal base for the CGTP, but unfortunately, this organized crime has overwhelmed their mentors and now it acts with impunity in different economic activities.
The CGTP has been demanding that the Ministry of Work and the Ministry of the Interior step in and take action to dismantle the fake unions and protect the workers, but no actions have been taken so far. According to CGTP leaders, President Ollanta Humala has no interest in protecting a union that is usually protesting the government's attempts to cut labor rights. Rafael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
Now let's take a look at our world news roundup, beginning with the United States.
New video evidence has been released by Texas officials in connection with the mysterious death in jail of civil rights advocate Sandra Bland. The footage shows how the white officer violated regulations. He is seen speaking in a threatening tone as she questions why she is being held for a minor traffic violation. He then threatens to drag her out of her vehicle and light her up with a taser. She was stopped for not signaling a lane change and taken into custody on false charges. 3 days later, she was found dead in her cell, hanging with a plastic trash that prison regulations should not have been in her possession. A memorial service was held in her honor.
All right. So some of the stuff that's in the news is true. Some of the stuff that's in the news is not. But the real issue here is something occurred that is going to change the world.
Amen. Sandra Bland was known for being outspoken on police brutality against the black community across the United States. Initially, her death was being ruled as a suicide, but now it is being investigated as a murder case. Texas officials and others have criticized her detention, saying this was unjustified, and the behavior of Brian Insignia, the police officer that detained her.
But first and foremost, as relates to the traffic stop, we have certain procedures in place, and he did not comply with those procedures. And, well, one of the many procedures is letting the individual know in terms of what action is going to be taken.
Police violence and police-related deaths continue to occur in the United States, exposing the serious human and civil rights crisis in the country. 2 cases of deaths due to police brutality have surfaced in Mississippi. On Saturday, an asthmatic man was hogtied by police and placed face down on a stretcher for no good reason. He died 2 hours afterward. Troy Good was arrested for acting erratically outside a concert near Memphis, but the band whispered panic. He had allegedly ingested LSD. This news followed the recent strangling to death of an armed black man, Jonathan Sanders, whose only crime was to ask police to leave a driver alone. The Greek parliament has begun debate on the second package of reforms imposed on the country in exchange of a third bailout worth about $95 million. The bill must be adopted in the next few hours to meet the terms of the deal struck with Eurozone creditors last week. The new finance minister, Euclid Tsakalotos, told legislators it was crucial they adopt the reform so talks of the bailout could resume this week.
We will have 2 weeks, 3 weekends to negotiate the new bailout. Therefore, it's extremely important to wrap up this prior actions procedure so that we can start negotiations on Friday.
The flow of migrants continue to arrive to Europe by sea on sometimes extremely fragile boats. Thousands have died at sea seeking a better life. Hours ago, 3 Italian ships rescued 414 migrants from 4 boats in the Mediterranean. 4 newborns were among those rescued. So far this year, 150,000 migrants fleeing poverty and war in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East have arrived in Europe.
Theodore Bickel is known for his starring role as Tavia, the poor Jewish milkman in the Broadway hit music Fiddler of the Roof, died of natural causes at Los Angeles Hospital. Bickel was born in Austria. He was also known for having created the stage role of Captain Von Trapp in the original Broadway production of The Sound of Music. More on these on our website, elizurtv.net/English. Thanks for watching and have a good day.